It's exactly 6 p.m. Cairo local time. You're watching Channel 2. This is the time for this English news bulletin. This is Reem Tamer, and we start with the political segment. We kick off with the headlines. President Sisi receives Singapore's President Tharman Shanmugar at NAM. Prime Minister Madburi inspects West Qantara zone to open national projects. "44 Palestinians killed, including 38 in Gaza City by Israeli occupation since this dawn." President Sisi received Singapore's President Tharman Shanmugar at NAM in the framework of his official visit to Egypt. President Sisi held talks with the Singaporean counterpart with the participation of delegations of both countries. The meeting discussed means of boosting bilateral ties. During the meeting, President Sisi stressed that there are a wide range of fields to develop the economic and investment cooperation between the two countries. The meeting also tackled the regional and international development of mutual concern, especially the situation in the Middle East. President Sisi reviewed Egypt's efforts to reach immediate ceasefire in Gaza Strip, allow humanitarian aid access, and release hostages and prisoners. The visit also witnessed the signing of a number of memorandum of understanding in several fields. Following the talks, President Sisi and Singaporean counterpart held a joint press conference. Addressing the press conference, President Sisi said that the visit is a new step on the path of Egyptian-Singaporean relations that is due to reach 60 years. President Sisi also welcomed establishing economic partnership with Singapore in the Middle East and Africa, and that totally supports increasing Singapore's investments in Cairo. Prime Minister Mustafa Madbuli inspected on Saturday the West Qantara zone, which is an affiliate of the Suez Canal Economic Zone. The Prime Minister is scheduled to inaugurate a number of new national projects. Madbuli was accompanied by a host of ministers as well as senior state officials. The Prime Minister confirmed that the opening of these projects represents a strong signal for the launch of Qantara West Industrial Zone as one of the most promising industrial hubs in Egypt and an important step forward, deepening local manufacturing and substituting imports, thereby enhancing the competitiveness of the national economy. He added that Qantara West has today become a regional center for textile industries and a living model of rapid achievement in the localization of industries, embodying the success of the Suez Canal Economic Zone in transforming its development plans into an integrated industrial reality capable of attracting investments and strengthening Egypt's position as a regional center for production and export. Egypt welcomed Portugal's decision to recognize the Palestinian state during the 80th session of the UN General Assembly. In a statement for the foreign minister, Egypt affirms that this accelerating international support of establishing an independent Palestinian state is further proof of the justness of the Palestinian question, is also a proof of the increasing global determination to end the historical injustice inflicted upon the Palestinian people and to secure their right to determine their independent state. Egypt asserted that there is no alternative to resolving the Palestinian-Israeli conflict other than through a settlement based on the two-state solution and the establishment of an independent Palestinian state, so to achieve peace, stability, and security in the region. The Palestinian Ministry for Foreign Affairs and Expatriates welcomed Portugal's decision to recognize the Palestinian state, considering it's a courageous decision that is consistent with international law and UN's resolutions and support efforts to achieve peace and implement the two-state solution. The Palestinian Foreign Ministry thanked the countries that announced their intention to recognize the Palestinian state, as 10 other countries are due to take the same step. It called on the countries that have not yet recognized the initiative to recognize the Palestinian state, to protect the two-state solution and engage effectively in the international to achieve an immediate ceasefire and protect the Palestinians. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said that the world should not worry about Israel's reactions as part of its continuous war in Gaza and seeking to annex the occupied West Bank. France has warned that annexing the West Bank is a red line. Israeli officials have said that annexing the West Bank is a reaction of the intention of some Western capitals to recognize the Palestinian state, including Paris. Palestinian medical sources said 44 Palestinians were killed by Israeli occupation in Gaza Strip, including 38 in Gaza City since this dawn. Israeli occupation army continue its violent airstrikes and raids on sporadic areas in Gaza City, leaving martyrs and injuries, including displaced and humanitarian aid seekers. Palestinian news agency Watha reported occupation airstrikes on 2 houses in Tufah and Basra neighborhoods and on humanitarian aid seekers. A number of Palestinians also were killed and others were wounded in an airstrike on Basra neighborhood south of Gaza City. Meanwhile, Hamas group military wing Qassam Brigade announced attacking occupation military vehicles in Jabalia area north of Gaza Strip. Israeli occupation military warned it would operate with unprecedented force in Gaza City, telling residents to flee as it presses its ground offensive on the territory's largest urban center. The military said it estimated 480,000 had fled since late August. More details in the next report. Israeli occupation military warned it would operate with unprecedented force in Gaza City, telling residents to flee as it presses its ground offensive on the territory's largest urban center. Israel has pummeled Gaza City with airstrikes and tank fire in its bid to seize it, nearly 2 years into the war that has devastated the Palestinian territory and left Gaza City gripped by a UN-declared famine. The assault comes ahead of a planned move by several Western governments, including Britain and France, to recognize a Palestinian state at a UN summit next week. The United Nations estimated at the end of August that about 1 million people were living in Gaza City and its surroundings. The military said on Friday it estimated 480,000 had fled since late August. Gaza's Civil Defense Agency said 450,000 people had fled. On Friday, the military spokesman announced the closure of a temporary evacuation route opened 48 hours earlier, saying the only way south was via the Al-Rashid road along the Mediterranean coast. The Israeli military has urged Palestinians to head to a humanitarian area in Al-Mawasi on the coast, where it says aid, medical care and humanitarian infrastructure will be provided. Israel first declared the area a safe zone early in the war, but has carried out repeated strikes on it since then, saying it is targeting Hamas. Civil Defense Agency spokesman Mahmoud Bassal reported artillery shelling and intermittent gunfire in the southwestern Tell al-Hawa neighborhood of Gaza City. He also reported shelling and drone fire in northwestern areas of the city and strikes in several neighborhoods. The US-backed offensive on Gaza City came as the United Nations probe accused Israel of committing genocide in the Gaza Strip, saying Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and other senior officials had incited the crime. Israel's aggression has killed at least 65,174 people, also mostly civilians, according to figures from the territory's health ministry. Israeli strikes on southern Lebanon killed 2 people and wounded 11 in the latest attacks, despite a ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah. The Israeli army said it killed Ammar Hay al-Qutaybani, alleging he was a Hezbollah commander in southern Lebanon. The attack counterpart Donald Trump on the sidelines of the United Nations General Assembly next week, as Russia intensified attacks across his country. Zelensky said he would hold a meeting with the President of the United States, adding he would discuss security security guarantees for Ukraine and sanctions on Russia during the talks with Trump. Ukraine has insisted on Western-backed security guarantees to prevent future Russian attacks. Russian President Vladimir Putin, meanwhile, warned that any Western troops in Ukraine would be unacceptable and legitimate targets. Moving to the world of business and finance, U.S. President Donald Trump ordered an annual $100,000 fee be added to H-1B skilled worker visas, creating potentially major repercussions for the tech industry where such permits are prolific. According to Trump's order, the fee will be required for those seeking to enter the country beginning Sunday, with the Homeland Security Secretary able to exempt individuals, entire companies, or entire industries. The new measure, which could likely face legal challenges, was announced alongside the introduction of a $1 million gold card residency program that Trump had previewed months earlier. Trump also signed an order creating a new expedited pathway to U.S. residency for people who pay $1 million or for corporate sponsors to pay $2 million. France's debt was downgraded by a second rating agency in the space of a week, underscoring doubts the country can deliver on promises to tame its debt during a period of political instability. Morningstar, DBRS, demoted France's long-term issuer rating to AA and changed the trend to stable from negative. It came a week after Fitch also reduced its rating for the country's sovereign debt. Morningstar considers that this political environment and the increased government instability constrain the effectiveness of fiscal policy settings. Oil prices dropped as worries about lost supplies and declining demand outweighed expectations that the year's first interest rate cut by the U.S. Federal Reserve would trigger more consumption. Brent crude futures were down 1.44%, while U.S. West Texas Intermediate futures lost 1.13%. Oil supplies continue to remain robust, and OPEC is reducing its oil production cuts. The Fed cut its policy rate by 0.25 percentage point and indicated that more cuts would follow as it responded to signs of weakness in the job markets. By that, we reached the end of this English News Bulletin. Came to you out of Channel 2. That was Reem Tamer. Many thanks for watching.